like to start our school committee meeting tonight. We're being videotaped by Westwood Media Center. Commonwealth Lynch, thank you for being here. I think we're going to start off by saluting the flag. If you could stand up, please.
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To start off, we're going to have an introduction of new administrators.
Thank you. So welcome back, everyone. Here we are, starting a new year. So I had hoped to introduce Mike Redmond tonight, who is our new middle school principal. He wishes that he could be here, but he has a family wedding this weekend, and Hurricane Florence has thwarted his flight plan. So we encourage him to get in the car and go. So he doesn't miss that event, but he will be here next month, and he has really hit the ground running, had a great start to the school year in middle school. I also want to recognize Matt Kuplins, who is our assistant principal at middle school. As you know, he did a fantastic job for us last year as interim assistant principal, but we removed interim from his title, so I want to acknowledge him. And then finally, I'm going to introduce you to Ashleen Flanagan. So Ashleen is serving as the acting dean of students at the high school this year, while Ms. Davenport is on maternity leave. So I think Amy's still with us for two more weeks. A couple weeks, and then Ashleen will officially be.
Next, we have the review of the summer projects.
Great, thank you. So I've asked the central office team here just to give you a quick rundown on some things that were accomplished over the summer. The district is actually quite busy during the summer months, and so we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I've asked each person to kind of share one or two slides with us. We're starting with
All right, well, we had a very short, very productive summer in operations this year, as always. And just so you know, operations part is headed by Ken Ayers, who's director of operations. He's here with us now. Thanks to Ken, we have our new mics. So, one of the positive things we did this summer. Also by Greg Baldwin, who's the assistant director of operations. And these gentlemen do an excellent job of making sure that not only are these projects done, but also that the buildings are clean and ready for the opening of the school. So I'd just like to thank the public for all their efforts. I'd just like to take you through some of the projects that we did this summer. Just highlighting, we think we can call them, but here's just a sampling of them. We did have to replace the boiler at one of the boilers at the Hanlon Elementary School this year. We replaced one about 5 years ago, but we've been keeping the other one going now for a while, so we had to replace it this summer.
So there are only two?
There's only two.
Because I think since I've been on the school committee, it's always on the list to replace some boiler.
And
So we're done for a while?
we're done for a long time, yes. We installed handicapped push-button access at the high school, at the main office, as well as guidance in both library entrances this year. We also have, just so you know, on the front main entrance and rear main entrance of the building, as well as a set of gang bathrooms on each floor. So we do have a lot of accessibility, a lot more than we had. We installed 5 AC units in 5 classrooms at the middle school, which is basically a phase 1 of the middle school second floor project that we're doing. So we're hopefully next year we'll continue that on the second floor of the middle school, putting air conditioning. We also installed air conditioning in a new dining classroom, as well as the STAR program at the Sheen Elementary and the Deerfield cafeteria. So that's some of our kids work for the summer, which of course was much appreciated when the kids got to it. We also did some repointing the masonry wall at the middle school. We had some leaking there. We did an HVAC upgrade to the software here at the high school, as well as we repaired a large gym door at the Hanlon. I don't know if you remember the Hanlon, but they had that large accordion door in the cafeteria that separated the caf from the gym. So we looked into replacing it or repairing it, and so we were able to repair it. So we saved money there, and it's working fine. We also, during the summer, we have all our regular carpeting projects and flooring projects throughout the district, I have added a few other things I'd just like to let you know about. We did upgrade the lighting controls here at the high school. The software is 15 years old, so once we have to upgrade that. We reorganized the Sheen main office. So we took down the wall of their story in the main office. It looks a lot more open, which is very useful. Just to give you an update on the elevator project that we had that was approved last year for the replacement of the middle school elevator. That is currently on hold. We did put it out to bid. Bids came in. It was fine, but the manufacturer was not able to get us the parts in time to have the elevator ready for the start of school, so we didn't want to chance it. And we can't do it during any one of the vacations during the course of it, so we postponed it to next year. Contractor held the price, so we're whole.
Just a quick question. On the AC, is there a plan to just continue to add AC for
Well, I think that's going to be a lot, we're going to discuss that a lot this year during the budget process and capital planning, because, yeah, I mean, it really shows us the need. As we've been trying little by little over the years, whenever there was money available to do a classroom here, classroom there, but really, I think we have to have more systemic work.
Can you give us a quick overview of really who has
Who has it?
maybe who doesn't?
Yeah. Well, most schools aren't fully air conditioned, I can say that. So the Downey, they run their summer programs all summer long, so they have the most AC out of all the elementaries, but still they're not fully air conditioned at this point. And so the Hamlet has ended.
Just
Yeah.
extended day, the
Just
modulars,
extended modulars.
that are air conditioned. Yeah.
And that's in the other schools.
Sheen has the second floor, we have 4 rooms on the second floor that we did either last summer or the summer before last. And middle school, we're just starting there. I mean, they have the new wing, the modular addition in the front, the modular addition in the back are AC. The small addition to the cafeteria is AC, but many of the rooms there are not.
And the high school is not AC.
It's not 100% AC, no, like the gym is not AC.
Oh, but the classrooms you have?
Here at the high school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that considered air conditioning at the high school? I thought it was like that, some kind of.
Yeah, because they asked.
Well, that's how they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are, oh, good.
Yeah, we have rooftop units here, yeah, classrooms.
Oh, great.
That would be
That's
considered.
good to hear. I mean, basically, our approach has been that we have prioritized, as Heath said, classrooms that are used all summer for extended school year programs. We need those to be air conditioned. And then we just had some real needs, so we air conditioned classrooms on the 3rd floor of the Sheehan because, I mean, we need to cool them down in the middle of January sometimes because of the HVAC issues there. So that was clearly something we needed to do. And the 2nd floor of the middle school in the oldest part of the building just gets very, very hot.
So what did you have to do at the high school?
For what, for the HVAC?
Yeah.
Oh, that's software upgrade.
Oh, so it's not big deal.
No, that's just changing our program, updating the program, so that we can connect to all the different events and events. So we completed the new bathroom project here at high school. This is a bathroom that is accessible to all students. It has a door on the hallway side as well as the classroom side, so anybody can use that. There's an occupancy sensor on it and everything, so.
Abby, you
So
want to
it's
say
not
anything?
male or female?
No.
So this bathroom provides us with much greater accessibility for people who need it. And it's a wonderful addition to the footprint of the building for the community and for particular students that we're welcoming as they stay with us through their high school years.
Right.
So it's a wonderful addition.
There is some specialized equipment that we have, a changing table as well as a little telefoyer that we're able to get students around the bathroom. So yeah, it's already being used, so it's a great addition. As part of that project, we had to do some construction within that classroom, and so we ended up moving some walls, and we put back a vanity space that they had in the special ed classroom there. This is just an example of it. The next picture is, we also renovated the kitchen that they had there, so I think it came out very nice.
For students who are ages 18 to 22 who stay with us for their adult years of their special education eligibility, a big part of programming is getting dressed and ready to go to work in the morning, or going to class at community college, or going to volunteer. so all of that can be supported in a wonderful way. It's a great resource. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all handicapped accessible. So the last project was our new dining classroom. This is a wall that we put up that separated the solarium. There used to be this solarium, which is a window wall in the dining across from the library. And so by putting this partition wall up, we created a space that we can use as a room classroom or as any other space in the building.
What do we have in there? What do we put in there?
Yellow.
Yes, a bunch of things, but I think Deb, I'm sure knows, several music classes in there because we moved the music to the stage, but you can't teach music during lunch. We also have our ELL classes in there as well, so it's a pretty busy place. Anytime it's available, teachers can sign up to use it, to do small group instruction, science labs, whatever. So we're working on a calendar, so to make sure it gets used. It's air conditioned, so it's a great place to be in those hot days.
And the next slide is just also we installed the sink in that room, and that's the hallway side view of the partition wall.
Any questions?
No, I think we talked about, I know in this budget section, we talked about doing kind of more of a double click on how you actually think about. I mean, these all seem great, but I'd be helpful to understand how that prioritization actually happens.
Yeah, that is definitely a goal for the budget process this year.
What's that in the technology projects?
Yeah, so I have everything consolidated to this one slide. Just go through these pretty quickly. The wireless upgrade to Thurston. So last year, we did a full network upgrade of all buildings except for Thurston. We actually did do some work at Thurston, but not the wireless piece. So we did it this year. We took advantage of the E-rate federal funding that is provided. It basically gives us a 40% discount. And the best news about this upgrade is we have one homogeneous network across all 7 buildings, so staff and even students can travel anywhere. It's just on the Wi-Fi. It's significantly more secure. It also has tremendous capacity. I would say that our network at this point is probably as robust as any network you can find in the K-12 sector in Massachusetts. So it's really been quite a boost, and it's we're thrilled to have it. There's also some real security aspects to that. I think I'll touch on that a little bit when I get to this the last point up here about security-wise. The second bullet, we did do an internet capacity upgrade. We actually more than doubled our capacity from last year. The good news is we actually lowered our cost by 54%. So bandwidth is going up, but the price is going down. So that doesn't happen much. So I was thrilled to take advantage of that. We actually have a 2-year contract with Verizon, so we'll continue to have good prices for the foreseeable future. I talked about this quite a bit back in June, but we did complete the expansion of our one-to-one program to grades 3 and 4. That essentially completes our vision for one-to-one. We are officially in maintenance mode at this point, which I'm thrilled with. The prospect of wiring 24 more carts for elementary school is not one that I'm looking forward to. So it's all done. They're being used as we speak. At all grades, and they've been very well received. Parent orientation at Thurston. Nothing new. We've done it for the last couple of years. One of the reasons I want to put that up there, this is for 6th grade parents for one-to-one. We retooled it a little bit. Again, when I spoke to you last June, I talked a lot about responsible use and partnership with parents, and I definitely changed this program to really focus more on some of the things that we're doing, as well as some of the things that parents can do when it comes to responsible use and making sure that kids are safe when they're using devices, both at school and when they're at home. We had our second offering of new teacher technology orientation. I call it NTTO. It was fabulous. I honestly don't know how we did it without having it in the past. We have so many digital platforms and reliance on technology that these teachers really appreciate having 2 full days to dive in and get comfortable with all these platforms before it's showtime. So that was really well received. You can see that how happy they look in that picture at the bottom there. And we just, it is just fantastic, and it's a program that we look forward to continuing to do in the years to come. And then lastly, the privacy contracts. I talked about this a little bit last year, but we have partnered with TEC, and they have provided legal services and administrative services to essentially acquire contracts with vendors for the purpose of securing our data and making sure that the vendors that we work with for online resources are compliant with all the laws. There's FERPA, there's COPPA, there's some Massachusetts-specific privacy laws, and we have really hit a critical mass with these. As you see on the slide, we have approximately 100, I think there are actually more than 100 signed contracts with vendors now. We are availing ourselves of about 20 of those, but the great thing about this contract is if one town secures a contract with a vendor, we can all basically just hop on. So if one of those 80 that we're not using is one that we end up using, we basically sign an agreement form, and then we have an agreement with the vendor as well. What's interesting is just today, this is hot off the press, the FBI issued a public service announcement titled Education Technologies, Data Collection, and Unsecured Systems Could Pose Risks to Students. So they just made this public, really just sounding a little bit of an alarm that there are some concerns about two things. Student data privacy when it comes to using online tools, which is why I'm so thrilled with this alliance that we have with TEC, that I think we're getting out in front of that and really making good proactive steps to make sure that we're good in that area. The other thing that this article refers to is also kind of security internally. And I mentioned at the top of the slide here that we have a much more secure network now that we've done the upgrade. So our internal data systems are definitely protected from intruders or malware or ransom type things. And so we're really attacking this on 2 fronts. And I'm thrilled that this PSA from the FBI is consistent with the things that we've been working hard to do. So I wanted to be aware of that. One other thing I'll throw in there I meant to mention, with the wireless upgrade and enhanced security, we are also able to start offering that students can bring their own device in. And so up at the high school, we've been promoting it a little bit, and I'd say we have about 50 or 60 kids that are now actually bringing their own device in and turning in their Chromebook as a in response to that. So that's another thing that we've done, and really the security and the enhancements we've made to our network have allowed that to happen.
So you bring a laptop as an example.
Yep.
And do you put any restrictions on?
Well, we have our filter that anyone that's on our network goes through our filter, so
So they
that's
can't
in
during
place.
school hours, yeah.
That's right. And it's worked out really well, and like I said, we've had several kids that have availed themselves of that option.
Steve, last year you gave out a survey that you did with parents, getting their feedback on a lot of these programs. They're really very interesting, all the way from coding to right up. And the education of the parents in Thurston, is there any potential value of educating, bring parents in whose kids are using Chromebooks? Like, you know, what's going on with the 3rd and 4th grades? And I assume they keep those computers in school, is that right?
Yeah, at the elementary level, yes,
But after, what grade should they take their Chromebooks home?
starting in grade 6.
6, okay.
Yeah.
So just so the 6th grade parents would be included in this discussion about how you can be better as a parent and help the kids and all of this. I think what you got to last year, which I find fascinating, is maybe through the teachers and the kids next year to kind of get feedback of what can they do better with the Chromebooks? You know, what, are they learning better? What are they learning better at? Are they better at history or science? Just, you know, that would be valuable feedback on, you know, what subjects are most helpful. And, you know, if you could survey that, that would be, I think, very, very valuable, you know, for us at least to appreciate better, you know, what's coming out of this. And, you know, thank you for that survey you did last year. It was fascinating to see what the parents had to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm definitely looking to do more of that, the whole parent engagement piece. We're talking about that in central office, and so definitely looking forward to doing more of that this year.
Did the parent orientation discuss at all the different apps that the kids use for homework and how they relate to each other?
So the main one that we focused on was the My Homework app. And my instructional technology coach, Jesse Murphy, went over that with the parents and how they can access it, how all assignments are on that glance for both the student and for the parent. So that was covered. But if there's a need for more information about that, I
Yeah,
would
because
want to
there's
know.
the interplay of the My Homework with the Google Docs. Because a lot of the teachers will put the, you know, you have to go through Google Docs to get the homework. So I think that there's at least last year, there's a little bit of confusion on the parents' parts about how those two interact with each other, how can we check on kids' homework.
So I know, sorry to interrupt,
No.
I know that the assignments posted through Google Classroom automatically sync with the My Homework app.
Okay.
So if that's how teachers are doing assignments,
They'll show up in there.
automatically go there. So it should be 100%.
Okay.
And I would want to know if it isn't.
Okay.
Any questions for Steve? Steve, thanks very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay. Turn to Allison for a second.
Excellent. So I think, you know, sometimes teachers get a bad rap for working during the school year and then going off and playing around during the summer, and that actually, in my experience, is not that true. There are a lot of folks that work really hard over the summer in many different ways, and I'm going to focus on two. Some summer curriculum development that took place this year, as well as ongoing teacher learning. I think last year I highlighted our summer enrichment program. This year I really wanted to talk about the teachers. We had a lot of different things going on. As you can see, a wide range of projects with many different participants and a total number of hours that people sort of sunk into this work over the summer. And what I like about the pie chart is it kind of shows you that the things that are the strategic priorities, the things that we're working on as a district, are the places we're investing the bulk of our time and our energy in terms of summer curriculum development. But we're not neglecting the other areas as well. So there's a nice sort of smattering of things. And so the big focuses continue to be on science. There was some interesting work that went on this year in terms of social emotional learning. And also some work kind of gearing up, because in about a month we're going to start the English, Language Arts, and Literacy review as the next review in the cycle. So we kind of started to get out ahead of that, continued work in SEL, and then this is sort of the last wave of very intensive work in science before we'll be kind of completely aligned and ready to roll for at least a few years. Finally, I think it's interesting to note, I think somebody asked this question, so I looked this year, and it was a fairly even split between the levels in terms of the different people participating. So if you looked at the kind of who did what, it's about a nice blend of things, including some K-12. The next slide, I just want to, again, talk about our faculty, because they did a lot of interesting stuff. One thing that folks may or may not be aware of is in order to maintain licensure, teachers have to do a lot of ongoing professional development, and many of them invest a lot of time and effort and energy and money over the summer to do that. Well, the district offers some free in-house courses. This year, in 2018-2019, we're offering a total of 15 different courses, and 8 of those either were completed or at least started during the summertime, so folks kind of got rolling. I gave you a few examples up there. One was a course about, sort of a short course on, what is the stock market game? How could we infuse it into classrooms, especially at the elementary and middle school? The classroom laboratories course was great. It was basically geared toward elementary school teachers who who have a lot of things to do and not a lot of time to do it. They're always trying to fit all this curriculum in. And so the focus is on how do you create spaces in your classroom that are just sort of ongoing science that you can check in and check out of. So at the start of the day, at the end of the day, you can go back and see what's going on with the animals or plants. If our students were open books, a couple of middle school teachers did a course that was taken by elementary, middle, and high school teachers about young adult fiction. Kind of what's going on in the world of the books that our kids read, what can we learn about that that's going to help enhance our teaching, and again, classrooms that support social and emotional learning. It was a very, very well regarded course that went on this summer. We also had some targeted professional development that really helped out in terms of some areas that have to do with our special education services. So Project Rewrite is an area that I think all of our middle school special education teachers got trained in. And the STAR program, with its move to this year, we did some intensive training there as well. Finally, I want to give a shout out. We have a few teachers who just did interesting stuff over the summer, kind of on their own volition. I know we've sort of sent word out to the press. I'm hoping they pick these stories up, but I'll mention a couple names. So Jeremy Wolf, off the top of my head, third grade teacher at Hamlin, did an institute at the National Portrait Gallery down in DC. So learning a little bit about the gallery, how to use the resources of the gallery to enhance instruction in the classroom. I thought that one was really cool. Many members of our foreign language department at the middle school and the high school did a summer language institute where they really dig in and work on their use of proficiency-based instruction in the classroom. So a lot of neat things like that. A couple study abroad students. It's great. I think Ashley, we're a study abroad.
Leslie Briggs went to England for the summer. She's at Redlow for 5 summers. So she did a summer in Oxford. And then Sally Patton did a program down near the Galapagos, but I'm going to get the island wrong, but supervising students down there. So
that's great. So, I think it's incredible that we have this staff that's kind of really invested in continuing their own learning so they can continue to support the students. And last but not least, I also want to mention the induction program. I think I had the same picture that Steve had, but I also had the bus ride picture from our teachers program. We had welcomed many new teachers to the district this year, which is very exciting. It's a great group of people, and we got to spend a couple of days getting to know them well and helping them kind of direct how to successfully start to do that.
They have credit for this towards any of the master's degree or anything?
For the district sponsors courses,
No.
or so the district sponsors courses we have the option. We don't do it often, and it depends on individual instructors, but we have the option to partner with universities to provide that. But many of our courses offer incremental credit, so people can kind of move their way up the pay scale. So there is an incentive built in. We like the in-house courses because there's some quality control. In the universe of graduate credit, one thing that has changed, you might be aware of, is that there are many online places that offer graduate credit on the cheap and without as much rigor as we'd like. So we like it when we can kind of control it.
Do you get to approve the credits?
We
So
do.
You can say no.
We can push back if we think it's really way out of whack.
So did you say roughly how many participated in our district sponsor? 15 courses?
It's 8 courses that went off over the summer. I don't have the numbers on that off the top of my head. but I can look it up.
No, you don't have to, it shows the fact that we provide these, but also the amount of work that our teachers do over the summer. I mean, it just shows again, we're very fortunate with the staff that we have.
Well, we won't even run courses if they don't have enough participation, so you have to get at least 5 to 10 people in the room. I think the SEL course was 20, 25, so it's a lot of folks show. That's great.
Also, the 6th, 7th, 8th grade, the computer science and engineering.
Yes.
You mentioned once before, like how many days or hours?
Yes.
Was it 30 something?
Yes, so it's essentially 30 days of instruction per year in each of those content areas. And many kids, not all kids, but many kids have that for all 3 years. It lives in part of the arts rotation schedule, so it's kind of an every other day structure for a trimester.
And what's the feedback from that? I would think it'd be fascinating for.
It's been great so far. I mean, kids, The engineering program's a little more highly involved at this point, but we're still sort of working our way into the computer science program. And we also need to see how we need to modify it based on the work we've done at the elementary school. We're gonna have to amp up our middle school program as the elementary kids who have been exposed to coding kind of come up. We'll need to sort of hone our skills a little bit.
In the life science units, this K-5,
Yes.
the program this summer, are we getting more and more ideas and information on that focus?
Yes, absolutely. This is kind of the third wave of, we had it at physical science year one, last year was earth science, and then this year, teachers, what's nice is a lot of teachers have sort of gotten out ahead of us and had already started immersing themselves in the curriculum material that we provided for them and went ahead and launched it even before we provided the professional development. This summer was really a chance to make sure that they had support and guidance for unpacking it even more.
And other school systems going into that area that we could learn from and share with? I think it seems to me to be relatively new focus, and others that maybe have learned things or tried out things, or they could, do we have any relationships?
We do. There are kind of these kind of collaboratives of different curriculum coordinators and elementary coordinators from throughout the area. I will say I really feel like right now in K-8 science, we kind of got out pretty, we're in good shape right now in terms of getting the curriculum up off the ground. We'll see how it goes over the next couple of years as we start. I'm extraordinarily proud of the people who did it. I think the teachers and the coordinators in that area worked very hard and deserve a lot of credit.
Thank you. Any other questions? Next item is special ed extended school year.
Sure. So as you guys were aware from previous years, every summer we offer extended year programming for students. It goes by the acronym ESY, extended school year. And there are two criteria for qualifying for that. Broadly speaking, either a student might regress and lose some of the skills they've worked so hard to have learned during the school year if we interrupted their learning, or the intensity of their program is such that to take it apart and put it back together would be harmful. Right? And so we have students in both of those kind of categories, and this past summer we supported 62 students. So if you think we're roughly about 570, 600 students, that's the top 10% of students in terms of intensity, in approximately 19 different programs. So we're running between pre-K to 22, about 19 different iterations of summer. Some are 4 weeks long, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and we ran this year a 9-week summer for particular students who needed that because the way the bridging of the different, end of the school year to the long end of August wasn't appropriate, right? And you can kind of see in bold the breakout, the youngest students, we supported 12 preschool age students, 25 elementary age students, that's our largest cohort, 17 middle school, and then I think a surprising number, 19 high school up through age 22 students in the summer. So that's kind of an important fact to bear in mind. We employed over 15 teachers, which if you think of our elementary schools, some of our schools maybe have 15 teachers, so it's like running a school all summer. Many ancillary support people, speech, OT, PT, ABA, nursing, etc. So it's really quite an operation. And there are people who are charged with that responsibility. So April Albertelli, who's here, coordinates preschool and elementary. Thank you, April. And then Edith Grachin at the middle school does the middle school, and Robin Fabiana at the high school is part of their job, do the high school and then the 18 to 22, and then I work with them all summer. I'm here all summer. So, questions?
So all of those teachers are Westwood teachers?
Yes, we have a couple people who come back to us each summer who work in other school districts and just come to us for the summer. We have a nurse who's been doing that for years and years. Some of our teachers need the summer kind of for their own professional development or to rest with them so they're ready to go. So we work really hard to have the most known people, but we don't want people to burn out either. Right? So that's a balance.
And then the curriculum is, how do you go about developing?
So a student with a disability has a document in special education called an IEP, the Individualized Education Plan, and when a student becomes eligible for summer, those goals and objectives include a 5th term of the year. And we actually write a report card, a progress note for term 5 in the summer. The staff stay and do that. And the concept is that that school year becomes a more year-round cycle. So it's pretty interesting. And we just want to thank everybody in operations because we keep the buildings open and operating across, right, preschool, elementary at Downey, the middle school, high school.
Trying to get them ready.
Yeah, while they're getting ready, and they're awesome. They're so flexible, and they let us keep our classrooms as the same as possible, work around us to the last day. Very thoughtful people. So it's a good year, busy year, and we're back at it.
Abby, I assume there was a time when we didn't do this. And once we started doing it, did we notice a difference in kids being much, all of these things that we're trying to keep, I'm sure it made a difference that the kids who were lost during the summer or regressed, that suddenly this has made a huge impact on their continued learning.
Well, so extended school year's been part of the law for a long time. I think as we've gotten more sophisticated, these programs have expanded. And you might have seen that students who needed this maybe in years and years ago would have had to go to a special school to access that. What I would say is that anytime you can extend a student's learning, you're going to see a benefit, right? And so for our guys, the continuity, the consistency, as well as the time in learning is a benefit, absolutely.
Just refresh me, how many teachers are involved in the 17% of the kids in special ed?
Lots and lots and lots. I don't know
It's
the
amazing,
exact
someday
number.
we'll
I'll add it up
have
for
a
you.
session
It's gonna be a
because
big
it's
number.
very, very impressive, the talent that exists and the kids we keep in Westwood who normally would not be able to be handled in the local town. It's a tremendous group of people
And it's fun in the summer too, and that's the other thing, is fun. We do a lot of good jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now moving on to district enrollment.
Great, so I included enrollment chart in your packet. Thought I would just say a couple words about that.
Say, it's the best enrollment chart I've seen all the years.
Thank you. I think so as well, so thank you for saying that. Okay, well, and there's some reasons that we have been able to do this. So, as I mentioned, I took a look at what our projected enrollment was in June when we were leaving as compared to what it actually was as of last Friday. And we did pretty well with our projections. We had projected 1,288 elementary students, and then we were at 1,286, so it actually went down by 2. We had projected 755 middle school students. We were at 745. We had projected 1028 for the high school, and we're at 1012. So the enrollment is a little bit lower than what we had projected in June. I think notably we had sort of a more stable summer than we had the prior summer. So in last August 2017, it felt quite different. We had a number of students enrolling, and I went back and looked, and we had a net increase of 14 students enroll in the month of August last year, and then 3 new, and this is elementary I'm talking about, 3 new elementary students enrolling during the first week of school last year. This year was quite different. We had a net increase of only 1 elementary student in August and 4 new elementary students during the first week of school. So we didn't find ourselves sort of responding to a situation in August, which was great. The other thing I just want to highlight is that the school committee established the buffer zone for University Station last spring, and I can report back that that turned out to be a very effective tool in terms of managing elementary class sizes. So as you can see, with the exception of Downey grade 3, where we are 1 over the school committee guideline, all of the other classes are within school committee guideline. And I think that was in part because we were able to target sort of where we assigned students to try to smooth out some of those classes. So that worked well. And I just want to acknowledge, I do think that it was difficult for families who are new to Westwood who are coming in. They, especially people with incoming kindergartners, they were very patient. They waited until about the 3rd week of August to find out what their school placement was, and people were very gracious about that. I appreciate that very much. A word about the grade 3 classroom at Downey. So Mrs. Gallagher consulted with me in August, and we have an instructional assistant who's providing some support to those classes as needed.
we'll keep monitoring, obviously, these numbers. The middle school enrollment, as I mentioned, as anticipated, is smaller than last year. The overall enrollment, as you know, is going down there, and we kept the staffing stable, so that's had a positive impact on class sizes. The high school enrollment, as anticipated, is climbing, and this fall is at a 10-year high. We added staff through the budget process in math and science. We can see the impact of doing that, where we were able to really lower some class sizes. I think as we go into the budget cycle this year, we really will have to take a look at English and social studies, where we do have some big class sizes. And we do also have, even in math and science, a couple of singleton classes that are just big, AP biology. I think there are 28 kids because 28 kids who want to take AP biology, and so we have them in one section. Generally, I think we're in good shape.
Great.
Just another ask of the budget, and we'll look forward to budget all that time. But would be interesting, thinking the middle school, if you look at like a year, we were at 800 almost. What would it be like if you fast forward? We'd be like at 600 in like 4 or 5 years. So I'm just saying that that'd be interesting to look at like how we start thinking about getting ahead of it. I mean, I know that some of it.
Oh, we're thinking about that.
No,
Yeah.
It's a good conversation to have. I think.
Yeah, I think so, because as the enrollment goes down, we're going to have to think about implications for staffing. Yeah, absolutely.
Questions on thanks for all the work you did during the summer and meeting with people and dealing with that.
Keep going to the superintendent's report. Yeah, so the security audit, I just want to give you a quick update. So we put out the RFP for the security audit, all of the school and municipal buildings in the summer. We received proposals. I spent 2 days last week with people on the municipal side listening to presentations from all the folks. I think we are evaluating 8 proposals. So we're evaluating the written proposals now and checking references, and next week we're going to be getting back together to see where we are. The RFP specified sort of a timeline for the work, and it prioritized schools. And so basically what we're asking people is how quickly they can start and if they can complete the school audit in 90 days. And and people are telling us that's very doable. The thinking is that we would like to have the recommendations before we vote the budget in case there are any budget implications out of those recommendations. The money that was voted for this process at town meeting, it included, so the money was for the audit and also to start implementing recommendations. So there may already be funding available if we wanted to get started immediately on some things. But most of these reports come in with phased recommendations and they kind of prioritize things. So we'll have to do that stuff. But we're working on that. Can I just have a couple other things up? Okay, quickly here. So I'm going to put in a here.
Can you enlarge that so you can see the number?
The enrollment chart. I'm going to post it online tomorrow. Everything will be up, but I probably can't. Here we go. Does that help?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Oops, sorry. Helpful. Okay. Good. All right. So I want to put in a plug that on Monday, September 24th at 9 a.m. at the Downey School, the central office team is going to be there for coffee and conversation with anyone who would like to come talk about whatever's on their mind. And we see each other all the time, so we don't want to talk to each other. We hope that other people will come join us for that. It's at the Downey School, but it's for pre-K to 12. Everybody's welcome. And I also just wanted to celebrate that we are one of 10 Massachusetts schools. Westwood High School is one of 10 Massachusetts high schools that's been named a national banner school by the Special Olympics, and that's related to our unified sports teams. It's exciting, and it's bigger than that, so I just want to point that out, that there are 10 standards of excellence that they have articulated about schools that demonstrate a commitment to inclusion that extends beyond athletics. So we're very proud of that, and it's very exciting.
And we could just explain a little bit more what that means, the teams and how they put together.
Yeah, Abby probably knows better.
Sure. So as you know, we host 2 seasons of unified sports. Unified sports is the next stage of the Special Olympics. So they used to be separate sports for people who were separate, right? And they're not anymore. They are now unified sports for all people, which is a big conceptual shift, right? And they are staying relevant because the students that use the Special Olympics go to mostly inclusive schools, and there is no reason for them to be on a separate basketball team, right? So the way it works is Unified Sports mixes kids with and without disabilities to play sports for real for their team, right? In uniforms, earning letters, doing all of that, right? And what's important about this is that they put in 10 standards that you could judge yourself against, like where is your school culture at to support this? And then they test you out with data. And it turned out that Westwood High School was one of the 10 that they honored this year in Massachusetts. And that video clip, there's that gentleman is reading them, and it's like on like ESPN, like you know, and then there's a banner with your school picture and name. It's quite exciting. We're the last school, so you have to wait through it. Very, very exciting. But I have to say it's really cool. And if nothing else, it's a good reminder to us that we can always grow and get better, and we can pay attention to this over time, and that it will make a difference, right? So.
And last thing I'm going to feature is that last Friday, I know some school committee members were there. We had a reception to thank our local businesses and community partners who are working with us to provide all kinds of employment opportunities to our students with disabilities. So we thank them again publicly, and it was a nice event that Abby and the Student Services team put on. And really, I put all these things up here to say, if you were following us on Twitter, you'd know all of this. So, you know, follow us on Twitter, because we're trying to get the good news about what's happening out there.
People who honored that called me afterwards to tell me how much they appreciated having the event, and that, you know, they had never been thankful before. So very nice.
Okay, I also just wanted to, so bring to your attention, I handed out right before the meeting some correspondence that we received from the rabbis at the temple. And I received that this afternoon, so I'm just getting it to you now. So I wanted to point that out to you, and I know that talking about the calendar for next year is on tonight's agenda, and this is new information. You may need more time to think about it rather than vote the calendar tonight, but I leave that to your discretion. And then also I wanted to remind you that we have this issue about the cell tower lease. And so the lease is up in 2020. It was on the agenda to discuss in June, and then we talked about it again at our July meeting. And my recollection of the July meeting was that there was consensus among the committee that you do not want to renew the lease. But I looked back at the minutes, and you didn't actually vote on that. So I just want to put that on your radar, that you may want to actually take a vote on that, or at the very least give Keith some clear direction.
So you could add that as an action item tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's not incredibly urgent, but if you know what your thinking is on that, then yes, we could vote on that, and then he could communicate that back to AT&T so that they can stop asking.
Yes, thank you. Other announcements too. I know these things are controversial, but the Boston Magazine says that the 14th best high school in Massachusetts, they were #1 in about 3 or 4 things. So, you know, just that's a questionable method, but it's nice to be
We'll
there.
take
Not questionable when we're at the top. It's all good.
We just have questions about the 14th, the number one was
The next part of the agenda is public participation. We'd like to invite anybody here that would like to speak. We'd love to have your involvement. We ask you to give your name, identify yourself, your address, and we ask you to limit your comments to 2 minutes if possible. So just if you raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Yes, come right up, please.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Chase.
Turn on your mic.
I'm going to turn on my mic. First part.
The little picture and the picture of the
Oh, yeah, hey, it's green. Can you hear me now? I'm Andrew Chase. I live at 131 Clapboard Tree Street. I'm also an orthodontist in the town, Arch Orthodontics, which is right on High Street next to Cabela's. We've been in town for a few years, and one of the things that brought us to this town was the phenomenal school district. Another thing that brought us to this town was our temple. And we have a wonderful relationship, I think, with both serving the community as an orthodontist, you know, 80% of my patients are people that you see on a regular basis. And I hear a lot of things, I talk to a lot of parents, and I have, that same feeling having a first grader at Tobin and a pre-K over at Westwood Children's School. So I was a little taken aback earlier this year when I looked at the school calendar and had seen that, Kippur was a day that was acknowledged in the calendar, but Rosh Hashanah was not. And a little history, for those of you who don't know, did get a chance to read the correspondence from the rabbis. The high holidays, which are the most critical, if you will, holidays in the Jewish calendar, occur as a function of the new year, and they occur 10 days apart from one another, and it's usually in September. Sometimes they stretch into October based on the calendar, but they're important as it's a way to kind of close out one year, celebrate a new year, make amends, and kind of start fresh and new for the upcoming year. And when we consider observance of holidays, it kind of falls at the level of Christmas without the gifts in that kind of experience of culture and importance, and Easter along the same kind of level. And it's very hard as a parent who comes from a high expectation of education, where I skipped grade and I dropped out of college to go to dental school, and I want the same type of advancement for my kids, to force them to choose between culture and an education. And the acknowledgement of that importance on the school district in the town, which has an escalating Jewish community, where neighboring towns do honor and recognize both of those holidays, but don't even have temples, is kind of a discrepancy in what I see as far as what can occur and what should occur in an involvement and communal development of acknowledging each one's religious preferences and the celebration of the importance of those holidays. It's a very important thing. I know the history. I had an opportunity to meet with Emily Parks and Donna Tobin a week ago with my wife, Kim, and I got a little bit of the history which I wasn't aware of, that several years ago, a decade or more ago, there was a conversation because there was no acknowledgement of the holidays, and I applaud the town for making that change and appreciate it. But it really is kind of saying you can get one or the other. Yet both are really on an even plane. And to take that support and say to the developing youth of our community that, there is an importance to have that belief and to be able to not choose or force to say, hey, I have to do one thing or the other, or I can actually acknowledge and bring back to you what I've learned in Temple, what the sermon is that the rabbis have provided, and really talk about that development. The same goes for those that go to church on holidays. The church is important. We honor and respect it. We don't have regular school programs occurring on Sunday or on a Christmas or on an Easter or anything like that. And so it is an important thing, and I wanted to reach out and really, it was just the timing was wonderful that we have this opportunity to meet before the planning of next year's calendar. The rabbis were gracious enough to provide the dates over the next 7 years, I believe, in that transmittal. To evaluate one of them, I think in a few years, might actually be the first day of school, being September 7th. And so, it's a thing where you say, okay, you're going to go to Temple, you're going to go to the first day of school. It becomes a very important consideration. And I think, where we are, we've got teachers that have to make that choice or not make that choice, and if they're making the choice to follow the religious custom, then that puts a burden on the town to find substitute teachers to come in and fill those voids. So that's what.
Andrew, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
We will be bringing this up later. We talk about the calendar. Thank you for
I
coming.
appreciate it. I'll make myself available if anybody wants to discuss it further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to take part in our public participation? Yes, please.
Do I have to say that?
Oh, you don't have to, just yell
You
loud.
need to come up.
Yes, Christina, because we don't know who you are.
Christina Martin, 23 Brookfield Road. I was just wondering if there have been any changes with the busing this year for the elementary schools, because at Hanlon, it seems that the length of time my kids are spending on the bus is a lot more than in the past. So if they get dismissed at 3:10, I know obviously there's some minutes for transition, but they were almost always home by like 3:30, and 3:35 is when you're like calling Annie to say, did they get a late start or what's going on? And now they're getting home closer to 3:45. It's a long time for a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old to be on the bus. And I'm just not really sure.
Yeah, there hasn't been any outright changes, but I can check that route and see if there's any, obviously, some timing issues.
Okay, do the routes tend to stay
They say
similar year to year?
somewhat the same, depends on the demographic where the kids are.
Okay.
How we have them.
Yeah, because, and some of the kids are starting to really like not enjoy being on the bus because it is long. And then you get, as a parent, resistance, like they want you to drive them or pick them up, and it just kind of snowballs. Yeah, so if they're,
And that's pizza purposes.
yeah, so I don't know if there's anything that might be able to like,
No, I'll check
an
that
area of
out.
efficiency or
Because he only
something.
has one bus.
Yeah.
Right,
Thank you, Christina.
Thank
Any other guests, please?
So, just April Appleman at 9 Appleseed Lane. Just to tag on to what Christine said, I started picking up my children actually a few days a week now because they didn't get home till 3:40 p.m. from
Is this
bus.
Hamlin also?
So, no,
Sheehan.
Sheehan. And I have noticed even when the past couple times I picked up my daughter, she's in 3rd grade. She's always, I don't know why, the last class, like, I actually was about to, my heart was pounding 2 days now, this week, because I thought maybe she got on the bus and I missed her. She was the last class to come out, and she's a 3rd grader, and it was after 3:15. And they're supposed to be released at 3:10, so I don't know what the whole is, but,
They're just coming out of the building at 3:15?
yeah.
That might be why they're putting them. All right, I'll talk to them.
But it's just one of those things where you're like, oh, you get worried.
Anybody
Sometimes
else?
also it takes time to settle in for the year.
Yeah, sure. I only actually was gonna bring it up.
Yeah.
I only tagged on because she said it.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jane Singh, 34 Salisbury Drive, and I have a new 6th grader and a 4th grader at Sheehan. So I was so psyched to hear that you mentioned the cell tower already, because you know we've been coming the past couple of meetings. So that was great news to hear that was, conversation's been had. And also, I think it also too might warrant some more, if there's a subcommittee that might be created, to just even look at the prudence of timing. So do we look at the contract? Can we break it? Do we have to keep it? Do we move it now for the next 2 years? I don't know if any of that's a prudent thing to do, but I do think it warrants conversation and exploration. And I know that there's plenty of people that would be interested and willing to help out if there's no resource to do that, just for the sake of the kids that are there now. And as, someone's laughing at me, my son's homeroom is directly underneath it, which I just thought was hilarious, because it's just one classroom right underneath it, which, again, we've talked about this, it's a 20-year out conversation. We won't know the implications for a long time if there is any ramification of a cell tower being on a middle school. But I'm glad that you guys have chatted about it and, have come to that conclusion that, hey, in 2 years, I think it has a 2-year it expires in 2 more years. So I think at this rate, so that's wonderful, step one. And then in the meantime, is it possible to explore any change within those 2 years? Because our kids will all be there during those 2 years too. So that was it, but thank you for that, and I'll maybe chat about getting us back on the agenda or somehow to connect with you on this, because there are a bunch of parents that really would love to help out if there's anything to do.
Right.
Sure.
Any other public participation? Thank you all. Yes.
Laura Denmark, Super Intendent. I just had a question about the numbers of students. So for, I think it was Downey in the 3rd grade, did you state that they received an aid in their classroom because of the large number?
The school committee guideline for grades K to 3 is 18 to 22. And so in grade 3, they're each over a guideline at Downey. The school committee guideline for grades 4 and 5 is 18 to 24.
Because the SHEA never had anyone in their classroom for that size.
You mean in the past?
Yes.
Yeah. So the school committee went through a big process to review its guidelines last year. And all of these possible remedies when something goes over the guideline were articulated in the policy that was adopted last fall. And in addition, the way the policy is framed, that if something goes over the guideline, there are a bunch of different possible options that we could take. In the case of this particular class at Downey this year, we thought it made sense.
Because, well, our numbers in the 4th grade have changed. We did gain a star student in the 4th grade, which I remember you said there wasn't going to be a change in number, any children added to that grade. And I know that we lost some students because their parents were they felt that the class size was so large and that their children weren't receiving the attention that they needed. And so my question is we have coaches coming in, and I just want to make sure that because the class size is so big, that they are receiving services from coaches, specialists, that they get any extra help that they can because the class size is so large.
So I just need to be clear that I do not consider 22, and 23 in grade 4 to be a big class. That seems like a very reasonable class size for a public school to me. I'm confident in that class size. Having said that, we absolutely do have literacy specialists, math specialists, those coaches that will be working in those classes. And, Mrs. Evans takes a look at the resources that she has and composition of the class and the particular needs of the students in it and makes a determination about how to allocate those resources.
Can I ask one other question? And it's kind of off topic, but in terms of languages, I know in a lot of the other schools they start languages early because it's stated that if a child learns a second language before puberty, that they actually hold on to it better. It's easier for them to grasp it. Why is our program started in middle school?
So that's a big question that we've talked about a lot here.
Okay.
We have a curriculum review cycle. And the last time we did our foreign language curriculum review, that was a topic that we discussed at length. And I'd be happy to talk more with you about it at another time, because I think it's probably more than we can delve into right now. But the short answer is yes, we reviewed what's happening in all kinds of districts where they start at different times. Yes, the research about brain development in little kids, we stipulate that. And what we did find is we recommended in our last curriculum review that we would start foreign language in grade 6. Honestly, when we look at the programs that have foreign language in the elementary, most of them tend to be once a week, twice a week. And when you look at the outcome of those programs, because it isn't a consistent kind of instruction day after day, where the kids get at the end in terms of the proficiency of their foreign language skills is no farther than where we get when we're starting at grade 7, if that makes sense. So that's the quick answer.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you very much for your public participation. We appreciate your comments. We're now going to go into our discussion items. Our first discussion item is the district improvement strategy, 218 to 219.
So I wanted to
bring us back, I spoke with the school committee a bit at the July meeting about our district strategy and the work that we've been doing in terms of developing our improvement strategy. And so I wanted to back up and just say a little bit more to frame the why, because I'm not sure that I adequately explained that, and because I think it's important for the community to understand why we're doing this work. And the July meeting was not widely attended. So say a few words about that. And then to talk a bit about how it's structured and what further work we've done since we last talked about it. And if you're comfortable tonight, I would ask if you could officially approve it so that we can kind of continue the next step of the work, if you think you're ready to do that. So, you know, I just wanted to put out this rhetorical question about why have a strategy, and I think that actually the big answer is this, right? We need a strategy because we're doing work that relates to kids like this. And, you know, one of the things that I said to faculty and staff in the opening of school is that, you know, we all understand that parents entrust us with their children, that they send their kids here, they entrust us with all the hopes and fears that they have for their kids as it pertains to school. And I noted that this year, as I sent my own kindergartner to kindergarten for the first time and my daughter to preschool for the first time, never has that been clearer to me than it is now about the importance of the work we do and the trust that people have in us. So, you know, very much I believe the mindset of this district is that we have a vision for what we want teaching and learning to look like in Westwood. And we really want every kid in this district to have the kind of experience that we would all want for our own children. And that is the frame for the work. If I think a little more, technically, about why to have a strategy for improvement, I think it has to do with these things, right? And so just the process of identifying and articulating the strategy and then having it be something that's part of the discourse helps to create some focus for us. And I want to be clear that the strategy document that we've outlined does not indicate everything that we're doing in the Westwood Public Schools. But I think in order to get sort of real leverage from our work, we need to all have clarity about what are the things that are really important to us and what are we working on. And that also allows us to be asking the question, and how do we know if it's happening, right? And to kind of monitor the progress that we're making. So I think focus is important, and coherence. So, you know, it's interesting, a couple of years ago, the district leadership team did an exercise where we put every initiative we could think of that we were doing, you know, up on the wall. And we realized that some things had to go, that we need the priorities to work with each other, to be complementary, to have it be clear how one is related to the other. So this process has to do with creating focus and coherence. We also have been thinking a lot in terms of, does the district strategy work at the level of being visionary, being aspirational, trying to get us to some place we want to be, and also problem solving. So there are things that we know about the district that we'd like to tackle. And we're really trying to hit both of those marks. And I think that if it's working, the district strategy will become a touchstone for making decisions and for making choices about how to allocate resources. And so I think it could be very helpful, for instance, during the budget process, for us to kind of have clarity about what it is we're trying to do and why. So that's kind of the big picture here. And this work is all connected to other things that have been happening. So, as you know, I did an entry process last year. In May, I presented the entry findings to you. There were kind of 4 big themes that came out in the entry findings. And I think when you look at the priorities that we've identified as a district, you see those findings reflected. So we didn't come up with these priorities out of nowhere. They're related to that. And also, we had a lot of discussion and thought about our ongoing district goals. So we weren't just staggering around in the wilderness before we did this strategy work. We had district goals, and we are continuing and sustaining some of that work that's already happening. And finally, of course, the work is connected to a real assessment of student needs. So we always are looking at things like MCAS data, what are some things that we need, things like student climate data, what are some things that we need. So I think that there's a lot that is behind the strategy. The strategy, of course, is connected to big picture, the vision, the mission, and the core values of the district. And we did a lot of foundational work thinking about those things before we started articulating the strategy. And the strategy is written in a way that it is focused on the instructional core. And I think that was really important to us as a team. When we think about the instructional core, we think of the what, the how, and the who, right? So the curriculum, what is it the kids are learning? The instruction is the how part, and of course the who is the students. And you know, those three legs or those pillars all work together. And what you find, of course, when you think about improving a district is that if you are playing around with one, it's going to necessitate change in some other way. And that also goes to that coherence, that a lot of the things that we're working on are connected, are interconnected. So that's sort of the thinking behind it. And let's get to the strategy document here. There we go. So I shared this with you before, but I thought I would put it up on the screen again. A couple words about vision, mission, and core values. I'm going to actually start in the middle with mission there, and you know, we talked a lot about the fact that you know, the mission for different schools is kind of the same. We're schools, we teach people things, right? And so I think that you see a lot of mission statements for school districts that are similar, and we have clarity about what it is we're trying to do here to prepare students for college, career, and civic life. And we want to provide a rich and challenging curriculum, high quality instruction, and authentic educational experiences. The part that I think starts to get at what makes Westwood Westwood and our sense of self has to do with the vision and the core values. And the core values that are articulated here, and the one about academic excellence and commitment to improvement has been an articulated core value of the district for a long time. And respectful relationships and a caring, collaborative community, that's been an articulated value for a long time. The thing that we're really thinking about now is the one in the middle there, curiosity and tenacity. And we've had a lot of discussion here about what that means, both for students and also for the adults who work with students and sort of our mindset around our professional work. So that's exciting. And the vision, I have to say when I look at this vision, I get excited. I think it's a good vision statement, and it's something that to me is very knowable. Sometimes you see these lofty mission statements with all kinds of jargon and nobody could ever actually remember what it is. And you know, we really wanted to come up with something that would feel authentic and be guiding. So this is what we have. Graduates of the Westwood Public Schools are skilled, confident, curious, and kind, excited for their futures, and ready to contribute to their communities. So the objectives that we have articulated are all in the service of that vision, getting us to that kind of aspirational place. So you'll see here that the title is Strategy for District Improvement 2018 to 2021. So we're thinking about 3 years, maybe 3 to 5 years for the objectives. And then we've tried to break it down to start thinking about, well, what does that mean for this year? So the structure of the document is that we have articulated 4 major strategic objectives, sort of 4 buckets here. And then for each one of those objectives, we have articulated 3 priorities that are priorities for the coming school year. And each of these priorities is actually hyperlinked. I will be posting this on the web. When you click it, you can see specific action statements, action steps that go along with each priority. If you look at the objectives, you can see those 3 prongs. So the meaningful learning experiences, that's the instruction, right? It's instruction that's student-centered, where kids are authentically engaged, where they see the relevance to their learning, and where they're learning important knowledge, skills, and concepts. The coherent, connected curriculum, that is our all-knowing what those important things are. What are the knowledge, skills, and concepts that we want all kids to have? The sort of school jargon would be guaranteed and viable curriculum, right? That everybody's going to get it. So This has to do also with making sure that the knowledge, skills, and concepts that kids are learning in the Westwood Public Schools reflect a changing world, that we're able to be adaptable and flexible as needs change. And something that came out of the entry plan, that that these things build over time without unnecessary repetition or gaps. And then the third bucket is, I think, of the who, the students, right? That we want these things to happen in a healthy and supported school community. In Westwood, we see our mission is related to really nurturing the whole child. But beyond that, we also know the acquisition of academic skills happens best when kids feel safe and supported. So the third objective is clearly very important for the first and the second. And then the fourth, facilities for the future, I think that just reflects things that we've been talking about on an ongoing basis, that we need to have the infrastructure and facilities in place, so all these wonderful things can happen. So the priorities that you see here, you will see the themes of the entry findings. You will see things that are continuations from district goals that we were working on last year. You know, for instance, if you were to look at the action steps here for continue to explore and implement the inquiry-based STEM activities, that's not news that we're working on science, and you can take a look at the specific action steps that are reflected here. Get back. Nope. Uh-oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Yep, there we go. Okay. The other thing that I just wanted to point out, I know you've reviewed the document, I'm not going to go through it step by step, but that I think you will notice that the strategy document really considers all different stakeholders here. So I'm going to use as an example, develop and implement a district-wide plan for meeting student social and emotional learning needs. You know, when we look at that, you can see that there are things that have to do with curriculum reviews. There are things that have to do with getting some feedback from students. There are things that have to do with the professional development of our teachers. And then a lot about partnering with parents. I just wanted to highlight that. You're going to notice a lot of action steps that have to do with how are we engaging with the community, how are we partnering with parents to make progress on this work. So I hope that was apparent as well. So where we're going from here is, you know, this is the district strategy document. The principals were all very invested in creating this. They're now in the process of working with their site councils to develop their school improvement plans, which of course should be aligned with this work. It also becomes part of our conversation this fall in the evaluation process when we're talking about educator goals, both for principals and also for teachers. I think it'll become part of the budget discussion. And certainly it reflects where we're going to be focusing our time and our energy. And I think will keep us on track and help us to hold ourselves accountable to what we want to do. So from here, the next challenge is sort of implementation and engagement and thinking about how to get everybody on board with the work. So that's kind of the quick overview, and I'm happy to answer questions.
We've had a lot to do with helping direct you to get to this point. Any other feedback from the school committee on what's been established so far?
Do you guys have anything? I have a few questions.
Great.
All right, so a few things, I just want to make sure, I know that you didn't list everything else you're doing.
Yeah.
So allergy policy was one thing, I didn't see in there.
No, but it's happening.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
Looking at the study abroad program, which is something we talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say, no, we're not doing that. It's
No, we
fine.
are doing it.
Okay.
Yes. So let me just say that this is a good example of how everything we're doing is implemented. No, but this is important. I think that the things that made it to the strategy document we think of as like high leverage things about district improvement. And I totally acknowledge that those two things you mentioned are important, that's why they're not here.
Okay. the elections, Dottie's gonna come to us, it's important, that's a safety, I know that's a facilities issue, that's
Yep.
the fourth one. Sorry, and then actually, the one thing I am surprised I didn't see more explicit was the achievement gap, which I think
Yeah.
is a high priority.
Yes.
But I didn't see a lot, that didn't come up, I didn't see that rise as well.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, that's definitely true, and it certainly is a priority. And as you say that, I'm gonna reflect on that, but I think it's probably so much a part of what we're always talking about that maybe we didn't call it out as explicitly as we should. But I'm gonna give that some thought because that is important.
I think in our conversations, the thought that because we're talking about instruction, the idea is everybody's gonna get instructed, right? But to your point, I think from a resource management standpoint, it's helpful to not have those things fall off the table, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's
we'll
important.
take that under consideration. It's good feedback.
Yeah.
This is the one issue that I've been concerned with is when we break out of the MCAS, the special ed kids.
Yeah.
And they do pretty good, except in science in middle school, and that is, the other thing is, I think feedback is very valuable for families, but we've been talking now about getting it from students, and we've never had a way to do it, but now we've been collecting, email addresses myself. I'd like to maybe get to see a draft of what the school committee would like to learn from our graduates. First draft, second draft, of what we might ask for in a new, student. So not just what should we ask for on feedback? What can the kids tell us who've been through here? What was helpful, not helpful? That would be very valuable at some time to be able to do that. And we can get student input today on what might be helpful to us. But I think it could be valuable in the future by getting, just as the parents who give us feedback on, the science and
I think
what
we
the
already
kids
had
are doing.
feedback from the students, don't we already?
We created an alumni survey. We didn't have a great way of getting it out to people. And so what we got back, the statisticians told us wasn't enough of a sample to be valid. But now we've been collecting email addresses from graduating seniors so that we can do that in a more systematic way. I think Allison wanted to say something else about achievement gap.
I was just looking back, I think one of the things that is reflected here is a commitment to looking at cultural proficiency and taking that part of our work on kind of head on. Cultural proficiency, so what are we doing as sort of teachers and leaders that really acknowledges the diversity in the district, that really does a good job making sure every kid who's here, even if they're a kid who feels like they're very much in the minority, feels welcome, safe, secure, and that they are being appropriately sort of challenged and supported. So I think that's work that's very much starting this year, and it's less about assessment and it's more about sort of laying the groundwork.
And so I actually wanted to follow up on something, you gave us some input in July that I thought was important about the security. So we have here about conducting the security audit, and you made a very important point that we are keenly aware that the safety and security of the students isn't just about facilities, right? But it's about climate, it's about culture, it's about mental health, it's about all kinds of things. Stress, yes. And I struggled with the way to make it clear that we understand that. But this, I think, goes to kind of what we see as the coherence here. So I would say that like 3.1, about thinking about social emotional learning, is absolutely related to 4.3, and I think it will come up when we look at our security things. And there are a number of things that are like that on here that, so for instance, 1.3, which has to do with instructional time, right, that integrates an ambitious educational vision with the developmental needs of students. That's also related to social emotional learning. It's also related to making our assessment system more measurable, right? So there is that synergy between.
So Emily, at this stage, do you want anything more from us than just support, keep up the good work?
No, I mean, this has been helpful to think about that, yeah. I want to make sure that people are comfortable with this and we're kind of ready to go because we're about to really roll it out with
Can I
teachers.
ask one thing?
Please.
So with the specific action items that are hyperlinked, is the idea that in June, July, August, we go back, we look at those and evaluate whether or not we achieved them?
Yeah, and so I would say even before that, so the idea would be that as we think about some of the things we're discussing in the school committee, for instance, you know, we would want to make sure that we're periodically checking in with how we're doing on some of these key priorities. But yeah, absolutely, the idea is that we're able to monitor progress. And, you know, some of these are outputs, right, just things that we're going to get done. Hopefully, they're all in the service of sort of this bigger picture outcome that we're.
We feel very comfortable with pushing the envelope that's been mentioned. I was at a meeting today, the boss at one of the universities. The person got up and he said something shocking. He says, 70% of the jobs that, 70% of the kids who are graduating from college this year, the jobs they will have in their 50s do not exist today. I mean, I just, you know, what, can we help prepare kids, you know, what some of those jobs might be, or what some of the, because that's, you know, really, couldn't believe it, you know, that when you start thinking about that, you know, if you're pushing the envelope today, you know, you're doing a great service to the kids as far as preparing them for what's going on. Well, I think we're supportive of continuing with this. Appreciate your time.
Technically, you're supposed to vote to approve it because my thinking is that this serves as the district goals, which the school committee typically.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Move a second.
Second.
Those in favor? Unanimous. MSBA project update.
Yes, okay, great. Okay, the MSBA, so we've made a lot of progress on this as well. Okay, so I thought it might be helpful to get the 1,000-foot view of the MSBA timeline. Turns out it's a very long timeline, so it's hard to put it on one slide. But basically, you can see that despite the fact that we had a big vote at town meeting to secure funding for the feasibility study, we are still in the eligibility period, and we're, you know, squarely in the middle of the eligibility period at this point. So I'm going to show you another arrow here. So that would be the end of the school year, right? So at the end of this school year, we will have formed the project team and have just started the feasibility study, right? And then at the end of next school year, you see where we may be, right, in terms of having the preferred schematic design. And then go back here. The need for a vote to fund the project, it's looking to me is like fall of 2020, right? So I just want to give people that sense of where we are, in part because we talked a lot about this project last year in the run-up to town meeting, and I don't want people to think that because they're not hearing from us now, that somehow something's happening in secret. It's just that that's where we are with this. We did a good job securing the funding, the feasibility study in a timely way.
And that, fall 2020 vote.
Yeah.
Is that what it was, 2020?
Yeah, probably.
That's the townwide vote.
Yeah, so that would, yes.
Mark your calendars.
That's the appropriation.
Fall 2020.
Yes, now I have to say that those dates I put out there based on like a sample schedule from MSBA, right? How things would actually proceed in reality for us, you know, I don't know.
Can we shorten the eligibility period if we
We
want to?
can. So, our eligibility period started on June 1st, and it goes until February 28th, right? You can see that there are some deadlines that we have to do in conjunction with the MSBA that are November 28th. If we thought we were all ready, and we have secured the funding, so we may very well be, we could ask them to take their vote to move us into the feasibility study at their board meeting, I think in December. They meet monthly.
And then do we just hold, or do we just?
So if they move us into feasibility starting at their December meeting, yeah, then we've gained.
We take off.
We've gained a little time, so we could do that. That's an option.
And is that when our committee starts to meet?
Yeah, so I'm going to get into that. The school building committee doesn't start to meet until the next phase. Yes. So I just want to tell you what happened this summer. So as you know, we formed the school building committee. You voted on that in July. I can show you here. It's on it. And as you remember, the MSBA has very prescribed roles that have to be fulfilled and certain people have to be on it. So it was a process to identify those people. All of the school committee is on it, and Maya Plotkin has very nicely agreed to chair the school building committee. We have some residents. What we learned in going through this process is that there's a reason that the roles are very prescribed, because the role of the school building committee is very specific and pretty technical. So you really need people who are familiar with this field, who have kind of the expertise to get done the things that need to get done from this group. So we formed the school building committee. We then had some deadlines for August 30th. We submitted our enrollment questionnaire and what they call also the supplement. And so that was a lot of information about our historical enrollment, our enrollment projections, and we had some information based on our master planning study. You have to submit all kinds of information that has to do with birth rates, has to do with how many building permits have been pulled in town, any no real estate developments, so all kinds of information that we supply in working with the town. We also had to submit our educational profile questionnaire, and this was an opportunity for us to talk about what our educational programs currently look like, some things that are important to us, and to respond to some questions about any kinds of changes that we foresee or something that might be on the horizon. So that's very preliminary thinking, but for example, one of the things that we said was, we think that we may want to consider moving the preschool to elementary buildings, right? Don't know, but you kind of have to say, yeah, that's something we might be thinking about because that could impact enrollment, right? So we answered a whole bunch of questions about that. The two things that are now happening, so Heath is working on the maintenance and capital plan. It's got to be submitted by November 28th. Having submitted our enrollment questionnaire, we're now in sort of this back and forth process with MSBA, where between now and November 28th, they have their people who use their methodology to crunch all that information that we gave them. And we will be invited in to meet with them. And by November 28th, the MSBA and the district has to agree on an enrollment number for the district. So we've got to agree on what our projection is, because that will be the premise then going forward into the feasibility study. So, that's an important process. We're in good shape because a couple of years ago, the school committee did a lot of this work as part of the master plan capital needs study. However, Heath and I thought it was prudent to see if there's anything we need to update on that, and so we are working with NESDEC. We're an affiliate of NESDEC, and they do this work for districts, and so we've asked them to kind of go back and take a look again, and any new known information. The study was in 2015, so we just want to update that. So we're kind of going to do our own due diligence so that when we're at the table with MSBA, we're not just relying on their numbers. Having said that, this is what they do. I think they are also invested in projects being successful. But that is the work of the fall. And we were supposed to secure funding by the end of the eligibility period. We've already done that. So that's where we are.
Any questions?
Any questions about that?
So you don't need any actions from us, other than I think it makes sense to see if we can do this faster if possible.
Yeah, so we have some things to think about here. Sort of what's next. Oh, I just actually said all that information out loud.
So will they have like enrollment version 1.1 that they would share with us before November? Like, would that be?
Oh yes, that you will be involved
Okay,
in those conversations. And the way the process is described to me is it really is a back and forth, and we are going to want to look at those numbers together. That we don't know. Okay. We just submitted it August 30th, and we haven't heard back from them yet. So that's the work. Now, what else is going to happen this year, right? So that takes us to the end of the eligibility period. The next part, so as soon as you get voted into feasibility, there are two tasks that have to happen first. Those are that you have to hire your owner's project manager, the OPM. That is a task that belongs to the school building committee. It is their job to hire the OPM. It will be wonderful when we have an OPM, because of course you are bringing on somebody who understands how all of this happens, and they then start to guide you through the process. And in fact, in the MSBA process, at that point, the OPM is the person who communicates with the MSBA. So all of that work happens that way. The second thing that has to happen.
So look at an RFP for that?
Yes, I mean, that'll be a very big process. The second thing is to select the designer, the architect. That is an MSBA-led process in collaboration with the district. They have a designer selection panel that is 12 people, as I understand it, including 3 people from the district. And they have a process for reviewing candidates and making that selection.
It's a lot better than the last time we did it.
So
the MSBA effectively chooses the designer.
yes.
We have 3 people from the district.
So
we
right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, we can't sway the vote, but what my understanding is from speaking to some people who've been through this process is that the MSBA, again, they want the project to be successful. They're not interested in doing something that the local community doesn't want to have happen, so.
So would it be,
Yeah.
would it be 3 people that the committee chooses to send? Or
Yeah,
do
so
they have
I'm told it's
designated?
typically the
Superintendent.
SBC chair, the superintendent, maybe somebody else from the school committee. Right. And I'm guessing that those folks probably vote, you know?
Let me throw it on the ground. We do at home. Sometimes it works.
Put this one in the middle.
There you go.
There, I think so.
So those are the first 2 big tasks, and those 2 tasks take about 4 to 6 months to complete. So that's the big work that's going to be happening this year. And it's been emphasized to me that in terms of really making progress and starting to move towards some kind of preferred schematic design, it's very important to have the OPM and the designer on board first, that they have to be part of that process and that conversation as well. However, so these are the things we have to decide, right? Because if we stuck with that timeline, you know, 4 to 6 months, I mean, that's the end of the school year, right? That would be it. So, as you mentioned, we could speed it up by 1 or 2 months to move us into feasibility. So that may be something that's worth doing. And then the other thing is that I think we should consider the timeline for community input. I feel like there's a delicate balance to be struck here, right? Like, you know, we don't want to have all of this conversation in community forums and then it's like a year and a half before we're actually doing that work. So I think we have to think carefully about that because we can't sustain focus for, you know, that long. But I do think that we could be getting started on some of these
Community
later this
input, is the project manager going to help us with that?
So, maybe, my understanding is that some districts hire like a visioning consultant who helps do those forums and do that work. I think that this work is very much the work of the school committee because the thing that the school committee is specifically tasked with during the feasibility study is we write something called the educational plan, which is a very extensive document. So I have a sample from another district and it's like I think hundreds of pages, right? I mean, this is a very big document. And so I suspect that you actually won't be doing this, so probably we'll be writing a lot of this. But the educational plan, this is where we really start to get into what's happening in terms of instructional pedagogy. What do we want in terms of grade configurations, right? What are our transportation concerns? I mean, all kinds of things. That is where we really sort of set out, you know, our desired schedule, whatever. That gets voted on and approved by the school committee and goes to the school building committee. The school building committee's job is to look at all the different options that are presented to us and decide what the preferred solution is. The school building committee, though, is charged with using the educational plan that the school committee puts forth to figure out what the best solution is. So we need a lot of community input in order for us to create that educational plan.
So should we have a conversation about whether or not we should hire somebody to help us
Yep.
in getting community input in a very, structured way?
Yeah.
Because we have to think about, if we're gonna get input on the educational plan,
Yeah.
we have to set parameters, or we will never come up with, we'll have a 4,000 page document,
Yes.
you know? So, I think we're gonna need some guidance in terms of how we frame the forums for community input. You know, we don't wanna squelch any conversation, but at the same time, we have to maintain a pointed conversation so that we do have a final product that's reasonable.
Right.
So maybe in fact, we do need someone.
But I'm thinking that, what do you do first?
Do you get the input or do you do the program?
No. Do we get a project manager who's gonna help us find the right person to create this vision?
I personally think it might be helpful to get the OPM on board.
Yeah.
And I think that could help,
Yeah.
that would help. And I would imagine that we're gonna find an OPM who's done a lot of these projects and has worked with the MSBA and can, can give us some clear
So
direction.
how soon do you go out with an RFP?
We have to get voted into the feasibility study before we do that.
Yeah.
And so that would either be, March 1st, if we stick with the timeline, or it could be sooner, it could be February, if we get voted in sooner than that.
So do we want to work on the RFP before we get voted into the feasibility so we can launch it? Or do we wait until we're voted in and then start drafting the RFP?
To draft the RFP. I don't know, that's a good question, I haven't given that much thought. So-
And do we, is there a prescribed RFP that was us to use from the MSBA?
I'm sure there's one.
The town's procurement officer is gonna be able to help us with that, she knows all the ins and outs, and I'm gonna guess that we can reach out to some other districts who would run these and find some.
If we were working on a draft, what it would be, so we don't spend another month after.
Well, that's it.
The other thing that would be
if we're
valuable
allowed.
would be is if we could think ahead of time about what are the issues we would like the community input on? What would we be asking for? What would be helpful to think that through? Then I think the best way to do it, but where is it going to be valuable? At
Right,
what
and that-
time, on what issues?
And that was the point, I was wondering about it when we're talking about what the education piece is. We have to frame what we want that's gonna be the input of the community, so we wanna figure out where we wanna focus.
So what issues we need their input on that would be most helpful, and that would be, beginning to think that would be helpful too.
Right.
And I imagine the OPM would be valuable in helping us.
Right.
So maybe just a draft of what we might want to think about in a RFP would be helpful at this stage, so we're not
Okay.
wasting a lot of time.
Okay, great, I will get on that. And, I think the timing is such, obviously, summer is not a good time to be getting community input. So, I think what we're gonna have to think about is if we see that work starting late spring, in terms of, some kind of formal process for getting community input, if there's a piece of it that happens this spring, or if we hit the ground running, I can't believe we're saying this, but like next fall, right? This
We're
is.
gonna run out of time.
Yeah.
Not out of time, I think, this isn't, so, I have a couple observations.
Yeah.
We can't do what they did 3 years ago and have a June infamous vote. We can't. At least I'm not gonna do it.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
When we have a vote, you do things really like in June, and then people go away for the summer.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not gonna be for that. But the other thing,
I'm
when they
confused. What vote
voted
did we
3 years
have?
ago, you made a vote about the school consolidation plan at the June meeting.
Oh, I thought you
So-
meant this past
No,
one. I was
3
trying to
years
figure out what we
3
did
years
this
ago.
year.
So I don't think that's a
Okay.
good idea.
Yeah, no, of course
And
not.
so, I don't know, I think I just am a little worried about the time,
Yeah.
because we do need to engage the community. And this isn't, we're not just deciding, we're gonna build one place and replace another. There's more, it's a little more complicated than some others, so.
Yeah, so if you look at the length of the feasibility study, and I think that does give us some guidance about how long a process this is gonna be. Sure.
We didn't take a vote. We had a.
There was no June vote.
No, there was.
Okay, good to know that. The point being, let's not do, there's a cycle and people go away.
Sure. I think we're clearly very committed to making
Okay.
sure that this is a good process and that we engage people in this. This is a big deal.
And yeah, we need to think about that timing. I think for me, it's just a matter of like getting a sense of what the process is gonna look like, how long it's gonna
Yeah.
take, and therefore, when is it reasonable to ramp up and do it?
Yeah.
So that we don't, hurry up and wait, kind of. I want us to think about that. And if we move into the feasibility study earlier, that could influence.
Right.
That
And that would help.
Yeah, I think so too.
Any other input you'd like from us tonight?
So what I'm hearing is you would be in favor of moving
Yeah.
more quickly into feasibility.
Looking into it.
Yeah, okay, great. And I will,
At least working toward that goal.
yeah, and I will think about
Thank you,
RFPs
Keith.
for
I'm
OPMs.
always glad to work on this. It's very helpful.
Great.
We now have the school calendar, and I'd like to suggest, based on what we heard tonight, that maybe we postpone the vote on this until next week, next month, when we have more information maybe, and consider what was said tonight by Mr. Chase. Is that reasonable?
I think that's a good suggestion. I also think that we should encourage people to let us know from the community what they're thinking about this. So that we can have a conversation. Does that make sense?
So we'll just move on to bring that up as we get more information and share it with everybody.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
The second issue.
I'm sorry, I think.
Sure.
Can we just clarify the first day of school
Sure.
policy?
So I was
So
gonna
that
say that,
everybody
so the draft calendar that we are tabling, I'm flipping around trying to find it here. Last year, the school committee came up with sort of this rule of thumb so that we can figure out what the first day is. So according to that rule of thumb, then the first day for students would again be the Tuesday after Labor Day, which is September 3rd. So I think that probably whatever conversation ensues about holidays wouldn't impact.
Right, and I think you brought that up too, Mr.
Chase, yeah.
To his point, he was trying to say that we would start school on the 7th, and that would be the holiday. But in accordance with we would never start school on the 7th.
Oh, that's true. That is true, actually. We would never start on the 7th because our rule of thumb is if Labor Day is September 5th, 6th, or 7th, then the first day of classes start the Wednesday before. Yeah, so that would not happen. All right, so we're tabling that.
The other thing I'd like to suggest is we discuss the cell tower issue.
Take a phone?
And I think, Emily, we did talk last time about the general sense that we did not want to renew the contract.
Yeah.
And so I'd just like a sense of committee that we would say that. And then maybe we could look into what's the implication of canceling the contract. If we were to do it, are we going to get sued? Is that?
Who would look at that? We need to know.
Town council.
Yeah, we got
think,
Tom
yeah.
Husker to look at it.
No,
I think
is
we
that-
already did that, right?
looking at it.
I mean, I'm interested in looking at it.
Yeah, we could get some legal advice on
Yes.
what
Do you know
liability.
the attorneys? No.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But could I ask for a motion if possible, just to?
Well, wait, can I just,
to
sorry, I don't mean to be like,
postpone-
I'm gonna be a scourge. This is actually, just an open meeting, this actually isn't on the agenda,
So
so I
should we move it?
just wanna be a little cautious on, it's not actually on the agenda.
Yeah.
So we can't.
So we just make it an action item for next
I don't know, I
month?
don't wanna be.
No, I think that's a very valid point.
Yeah, for an action item for next.
Something like this,
Next time.
yeah.
Okay.
With the sense being, we're not
Yeah,
gonna know what
yeah.
it's a heads
And in
up.
the meantime, if anybody wants a copy of the lease,
Look into it, what's our liability?
Yeah.
Okay, copy of the lease to school committee. I know that Keith has already forwarded it to Tom McCusker, town council, to get some guidance. And we will put it on as an action item for next.
That's a good suggestion, so we'll pursue that. I'd like to move on to action items. First of all, the approval of the minutes of June 14th, 2018.
yeah, there's only one minor thing on the minutes. I think when that was the minute where I did, and just, it says, Ms. Lewis will present the evaluation in the public setting. I just want to make it clear that it was presented.
You did.
I did do it. It was
And it was long and.
Listen, it wasn't long and painful. It was an excellent
Well, that's what I
presentation.
said, it was long and very detailed. And we all
I have a motion to approve the minutes from the adjustment.
So just the,
Second,
do we have a second?
those in favor? Next item, approval of minutes of July 24th, 2018.
I'll move.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Approval of the superintendent as a district representative to the TEC Board of Directors.
I make that
Motion.
motion.
Second.
Second. Vote. Unanimous.
Are you in favor?
I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, everybody.
Wait.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
We have one other thing, I'm sorry, I was supposed to get this to you, I hope this can still happen. I don't have the number. Do you have the
Oh, I
number?
do.
So the Downey PTO very generously would like to purchase some new playground equipment for the Downey playground. And we've been advised by the town treasurer that the school committee should vote to accept that gift. How much is? And so it is.
$22,525.
Wow.
It's a substantial gift, and so,
Could I take a motion to accept the gift?
what is the amount again?
It's $22,525.
$22,525 from the Downey PTO to purchase.
Motion to accept the gift?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? And to thank formally thank the PTO for this wonderful gift and all the hard work they did to get the money. Could I have a motion?
To adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.